All right, so we are basically halfway through our in-betweening, which means we have half of the way to go as well. But now we maybe have gotten a bit more used to the whole workflow of how we like duplicate poses and then we tweak them and then we kind of move on and just do the same for the entire sequence. So that's what we're gonna just keep on doing for the rest of this lesson before we get into the splining part, which should be really fun too. So yeah, I'll just hop into Cinema and we'll keep doing that. So currently we have the last in between that we put on frame 35, right? So that's kind of like our easing out point when she's like finished swinging the blade and she's basically put a stop in her swing. And next up we have this big like left outward swinging motion. So I think I want to add a couple of in-betweens here. So the first in-between that I'll probably do will be her basically going from this to this. So she kind of flips the sword before she does the swing. And then the next in-between would probably be a similar kind of thing as this that we did. So like the easing out motion right after she's finished the swing. So we can go ahead and hop to frame 37. And I'll go ahead and select all of my animated objects in the timeline here. And I'll just hit Control-A to select everything and just place a keyframe for every one of our animated parameters like this. So we have this stored. And what I want to do now is kind of like make her like bring up the sword a bit too. So it's not like she just flips her forearm. We also want her to kind of angle the arm out a bit since she's going to make this really big straight swing out. So the first thing that we can do is maybe go ahead and rotate the forearm. So I'll go ahead and select our forearm and I'll just kind of rotate it out, something like this. Let's check what kind of axis the forearm will have. Yeah, so it's 0. So maybe let's set this to 0 like that. And we can also take a look at our left hand, see what that has. So let's see what happens if we copy all of these attributes to our in-between. Just so we have the same kind of hand placement in these two frames. Something like that. And we can go ahead and rotate her left arm up as well. So I'll just... So it's minus 45, 0, and 90. So we don't want to rotate this one yet, but we can just kind of rotate her arm up. Maybe not that much. So we don't want her to do it like completely, but maybe just a bit further up. And we can sort out these strings once we are done with our animation, just so we know that we're not going to intersect them. And I'll just go ahead and scrub through this. It feels all right. Maybe let's rotate her arm a bit out. I think we can go ahead and tweak her hand a bit because I think that's kind of what's causing this weird angle a bit. So we can straighten her hand out, something like this. So the sword just feels somewhat straight like that. So boop. Let's just play this out and see how this feels. Boop. Nice. Yeah, I feel like that's feeling decent. Okay, yeah, we can go ahead and move on from this pose for now. And if we feel like we need to tweak it, we can do that once we placed some of the others. A lot of the times when you're animating, you might like get really stuck into this certain movement or this certain pose. And once you move on and then come back to that movement, you might, have completely fresh eyes and view the animation in a completely different way. And that's healthy. Like when you are working like this, you shouldn't just get super stuck into this certain movement. You should view it as a whole. So sometimes I work on something and if I feel like, yeah, this feels good now, I might come back later and just check it again. This is kind of one of those poses that I'll probably do that. So currently, I'm happy. It is a bit of a special movement to make, though, so it's hard to judge whether this will work once we spline it. But yeah, we can always come back and tweak and adjust things. But I think this is feeling all right. Yeah, all right. All right, so as I mentioned previously, we have this big swing out here. So we want the same sort of easing out thing that we have between these frames. So So just a slight like additional in between, so we can kind of suggest that she's like making the big part of the swing really fast and then she's easing out with her arm there. And since this is the kind of spacing we have between the poses, so I think maybe right in the middle here between frame 37 and 41, we'll find frame 39 in my case. And since we want this in between to be more close to this pose rather than this, it makes sense to do as we've done previously, to just copy this pose to frame 39. So I'll just make sure that I select all of my objects here. I'll go to frame 41 and just drag everything to frame 39 like that. So we have this swing happening a bit sooner now. And then we'll go back to frame 41 and keyframe all of our animated properties. Control A, and then control click one of these tangents. Okay. And now we can go ahead and edit the in-between here. So when we are doing these in-betweens for these like big ease out motions that we're doing for the swing in this case, it makes more sense for us to come into the attribute that we want to ease out and just slightly pull it down or pull it up in our timeline rather than going in and like doing rotational movements here in our viewfinder. So if we come to our left arm, we'll take a look at what axis is the one that will kind of be easing out. So in my case, it's the rotation H here. So obviously it just makes more sense for me to just go in here and just kind of pull this down a bit, because I know that's the sort of pose that I want to place here. So we can just take a look at this. That was even a bit too much, I'd say, just slightly. And this is looking a bit odd, and that is literally because it's the only thing that is moving currently in this in-between. And naturally we want her, upper body and her head and everything to kind of follow with. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing for the upper body, for the rotation H. So something like that. Maybe even a bit less. And we'll want to do the same thing for the head, because that needs to kind of counteract. Nice. This is starting to look really cool. And we might also have her forearm kind of bend a bit in this in-between. Let's try that out and see how that feels. So that would be the rotation P in my case. So just kind of slightly bend it like that, see how that feels. Might be a bit too big of a movement, but yeah, might want to decrease that a bit. And we can just take a look in our viewfinder here, or our perspective view, just how this looks. Nice. Okay, so we have that swing working really nicely, I think now. We can just play through a couple of times, see how things feel, see if you're happy with it all. But I feel like this is a really good stage before we spline things. Great. So if we keep scrubbing through our sequence here, we kind of want to add an in-between between this and this pose as well. And I'm thinking that we just do this slight shift with her arm and sword just before she goes into this. And in my case, it would make sense to edit from this pose rather than this one, because I'm kind of just seeing her, bending her hand a bit, rotating her arm back. So nothing big. And I think we actually can do that on frame 46 that we are on right now. So I'll just go ahead and select all of my animated objects, and I'll select everything by hitting Control or Command A, and I'll place a keyframe by holding Control or Command and clicking on one of the tangents like that. Great. And now we can go ahead and edit this pose. So as I mentioned, just not too big of a movement, just her flipping the sword down somewhat, rotating her arm. She's going to lift up her arm a bit, so it kind of makes sense to start that movement as well. So I'll just take her left arm here, and I'll just kind of start rotating it back, rotating it up a bit. We can shift her. Let's take a look at what kind of degree her forearm will be at frame 49. So that's at -85. So we can just kind of start that rotation down. And we can kind of try and shift her hand back a bit as well. Something like that. Let's see how that feels. I think we can rotate her arm back even further. Let's try that. We can probably also rotate her upper body a bit, because that's gonna be moving quite a lot once we get into this pose. Like, she tilts her weight a bit, so Let's see where we can do that. So I think that's rotation P in my case. I'll just kind of slightly shift it up, so something like that. Nice. Might want to just shift her hand in just a bit further. So let's try that. Nice. So I think that whole sequence is working pretty fine. We can just go ahead and play everything through again, just to see how it feels. Nice. So I think up next is just this kind of anticipation before she shoves the sword down into the ground. And we can probably put that at, let's see where we have our poses set. So yeah, so at frame 55, that's where we put the sword down. So maybe at frame 53 is where we can add this slight anticipation. And I think we can edit the pose that we're on currently. So we can just select all of our animated objects, select all of the tangents, hold Command or Control, and just click to add a keyframe like that. And here I kind of want her upper body to do most of the work in terms of the anticipation, because I kind of want her to really put her weight into this shoving down motion. So then, you know, you wouldn't, if you would do this yourself and like with a really heavy object, you wouldn't like have your arm go down and then your body follow. Like you would put your entire body into it and then shove the arm down. So we kind of want to do the same thing here. So I'll just select our rotation B for our upper body, and I'll just hold shift and drag this down slightly. Let's see how that feels. Let's try even more. And obviously we still want the arm and, you know, hand to do something here, because otherwise it just feels like she's standing completely static with her arm. So I'll just go into my left arm, take a look at the rotations here, see which one is the one doing the work. Maybe rotation, yeah, rotation P is the one. So I'll just kind of edit that. And now we also need to kind of counter move her hand a bit. So we just shift it back somewhat. Let's try and play that out. I'm going to go ahead and draw where my sword is getting planted, just so I can precisely see the kind of trajectory here. So this is where the sword is on this pose, and then here we have it. Yeah, so that's basically like a movement down like that. It's kind of good to draw in your viewfinder to just see what sort of paths your objects will be moving in. So I just kind of want to make sure that the sword travels down in a natural way, so it doesn't kind of like go back and forth on its way down. So I'm just going to play this out, see how it feels. Let's view it in the perspective as well, just so we can see if it's doing anything odd. Might want to rotate it back. I mean, she would probably have it almost straight down into the ground once she is at this pose. So kind of want to just see where it can fit. Something like this maybe. Let's try that out. As you can see now, this feels a bit odd, because now the sword goes from here and then it goes almost to the right of where it's ending up. So we kind of want it to end up somewhere around here, I think. So I'm just going to try and see if there's a way I can just shift it around. Yeah, like that. She's almost like fully planted the sword at this frame too, which that's not really the thing that we're going to do here. We just want like some anticipation on things. So I'm just going to dial back some of the rotations that we just placed, especially on the upper body, because that's kind of where most of the rotation happens. And then also same with the left arm here. Hit Control or Command A and then S to focus in on things. I'm just gonna tweak a couple of things here. Let's view our hand curves when we are doing this. Let's see how that feels. Yeah, there we go. I'm just gonna hop into my left arm, rotation P here again, and we just don't even want that to do that big of a motion, to be honest. We want that kind of thing to snap down between frame 53 and frame 55, so something like this I think works really well. And then once she's planted the sword, obviously that will be like a hard impact for her body, because she's kind of like pushed her entire weight and her strength into this sword being placed into the ground. So then she wouldn't just naturally immediately stop there, but she also has, you know, still a like solid grip of the swords, but her body would kind of maybe like get pushed with the weight being shifted. So I think we can make just a slight follow through motion, as if her body weight kind of makes her upper body travel a bit with her weight shifting. And I think most of the movements, it will basically be a similar thing to what we did in this pose. So she still shifts her weight, but still has a firm grip of the sword handle. So we'll just go to maybe frame 57. Yeah. So 2 frames after the frame where she planted the sword, we'll just go ahead and hop into our upper body here and go to rotation P, Command or Control A to select all the keyframes, and then S to focus in on them. And I'll actually want to keyframe all of the objects here. Sorry about that. So we just Control A, hold in Command or Control, and keyframe all of the animated objects like that. And now we can go ahead and slightly move this down a bit. So something like that. And like before, we need to counter move our left arm. So I'll just move that up a bit, and then also do the same thing for our forearm, but that should probably be rotation P if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, correct. So something like that. Let's see how that feels. I think I want her upper body to kind of follow a bit further. So I'm just going to rotate her upper body a bit further down. Maybe try and play it out before we adjust the arm. Ooh. Nice. Yeah, okay. So we'll go back to the left arm, rotation B. We'll just shift it up a bit like that. Same thing for the forearm, rotation P. Now just shift drag it up a bit like that. And we'll kind of just eye it so it ends up in a similar position between these 2 poses. Like that. Great. Perfect. I think that's working really well. I'm just going to view this entire sequence. Just going to play it all out and look at the bigger picture. Nice. Okay, we are definitely getting there. And I'll just go ahead and delete my doodle object now because I don't need that anymore. And I think that exactly like we did for the gripping, like here, I think we can do the same with this gripping as well. So she kind of palms the sword and then grips it. So she currently completely grips the sword at frame 67. So I think we can make a duplicate of this pose at frame 69. So I'll just go ahead and Control or Command A, select all of my objects in my timeline, hit S to focus in on all of them, and I'll just Control A here within my curve view here and select all of the tangents, and then Control or Command click here to add a keyframe for every single animated attribute like that. And then we can go ahead and edit this pose, while this one will be the last pose before it loops. So we just go ahead and open up our hand a bit like we did previously. So I'll just rotate the pinky out a bit like that. Middle finger as well. And we'll do the same thing with our thumb. Might want the thumb a bit further in. Oops, I'm seeing now that I have deactivated my auto keying in some way. Not sure how I did that. So then all of my changes to my animated attributes have been discarded. So I'll just go ahead and reactivate auto keying. This pose is still the same though, so don't need to worry about anything. Good thing I caught that. So we'll go ahead and redo our bending out. Like that, and then also bend our thumb out. and then play it out, see how it feels. Maybe rotate the pointy out a bit, like that. And also maybe rotate the thumb out just slightly. Great. I'll probably also want her hand to shift a bit as it does this. Maybe rotate the hand tilted like that. And might also want to do the same thing with our left forearm. So I'll just rotate it up into P like this. Like that. Maybe not that much actually, maybe just 2 degrees, and then I'll also do some rotation P adjustment for our left arm as well, so we have a bit more of a follow through movement for the entire arm and not just the hand and the forearm, so something like that. Okay, let's go ahead and play our entire sequence out, see how everything feels. Yeah, this is looking super nice. I would say that this is a really good stage for us to move into splining. We have some really cool poses to work with. And all of these anticipations and follow-throughs and ease in and ease outs have definitely set us up for a smoother workflow moving forward. So yeah, we'll wrap it up there. If you have some tweaks that you want to work on, I'll leave you to that, and I'll see you in the next lesson then.